Hello and welcome to the Cube Talk Show. I'm your host, Mr. Joe Barbieri. Tonight's show, we're going to be talking about private businesses. As you know, this show is about money, the ever-changing face of money. So we'll be covering many different parts of money with each show. We have with us today via conference call from Brampton, Ontario, Mr. Harjinder Kang. He's the president of Ojala Financial Corporation. Harjinder?
Yes, Joe.
Hi, how are you?
Not too bad.
So first off, if you could just give us a little background about yourself and how you got into the business of dealing with businesses.
Well, Joe, from the background point of view, I started my journey into this industry, I think, to remind our days together at TD Bank, where I've hopefully started together. And from there on, we worked there as an investment specialist, and then I moved on to the CIBC. I moved into a few different roles, and my last role there was I was a senior business advisor. So, which gave me some exposure to different aspects of transaction-looking things from investment point of view. While we work at TD as investment specialists to how to analyze things and how to look things from investment point of view. And then working at CIBC as a senior business advisor, it gives me, the naked opportunity, I will say, to work truly openly with the entrepreneurs and see them functioning, see them succeeding, and also learning what is causing them to fail. And it also further improved my interest in the industry. And from 2001, we started a company, Ojala Financial, and the primary purpose of Ojala Financial Corp since then is merger and acquisition and corporate finance. And I understand today's topic is successfully buying and selling of businesses. So, going back to your first question, you said what is involved in it?
Yeah, I guess to start with, what is the general process of buying and selling a company? I'm assuming this is selling a whole business as opposed to...
Yes, actually, it could take different forms there. And to come back, first of all, I'm just going to step back a little bit about, the business itself there. Why we, buy and sell businesses and how do people get into businesses? There's two type of people, in the, primarily who get into business. One who go into business from the startup, from the scratch, and they are, the entrepreneurs who come up with an idea and who, see an opportunity or who see a gap in the marketplace, or in many cases who might have a hobby there which they develop into business. But a good majority of people, they are taking the second route. They are buying businesses which are already up and running businesses. And, buying business, today's topic is buying private companies. So these will be the companies which are not listed on the stock exchange. For example, buying the common share of the Royal Bank or TD Bank. These will be the private companies. And the people who are typically buyer of the private companies we usually see them, they're three-tiered. And the top tiered is the people who are already in the industry. And let's say you are, conducting a radio show and, in the industry of communication or entertainment. So people sometimes, if you are running a show in Toronto, you might be trying to acquire a station in Vancouver. So that will be we call them industry people. Or, for example, if I'm making cards for General Motors and, somebody else making parts for the, Ford or something, and one company acquires the other one, we call them strategic or industry people. Other type of buyers we call them financial buyers, which are the people who pool the money of the investors, and then they invest money in the private companies as opposed to investing in the public stock exchange listed companies. And this is done mostly through the private equity funds there. And I think predominantly to this, those people don't not probably not be the target of today's conversation. And predominantly, the people probably we're talking about today is the people who are thinking of buying a business, who are individuals, the individual buyers, and who are thinking of contemplating between starting something from scratch or buying something which is already up and running with some proven history and track record there. So in this group there, there are again further people who just happen to have money and they're looking for opportunity. And the other one is basically people who came from the, let's say you work in the General Electric and you was general manager in one of their divisions and you taken a lot of responsibility. You have learning from the, things from the operations side, from the administration side, from the management side. And now the time has come, you probably want, something of your own. And they are usually we call them the best people there to buy something, which they have already exposure to the business, they learn it. But there are some other people there, who didn't have this luxury of learning the way, the people I've described as a General Electric or, some other similar type of outfit there. And even for those people who don't have the same learning, buying an established business as opposed to starting from the scratch is still a win-win situation. Why? Because if they're buying established business, they already have some, comfort there that this company is already up and running with the proven systems in place. And having said that, it will have policies, procedures, manuals, and certain key employees already in place, so that they can rely on them until they catch up, until they up and running with their own knowledge of the business there. That's about three type of people we describe, three type of buyers we describe there, who typically buy a business there. So what is your next question there, Joe?
So assuming you're somebody who is buying the company, so the one case is they'd actually have the money to buy it and they'd pay in cash. There'd be another case where they'd have to borrow the money or get people to help them pay for the business. Is there a process around that as well?
Yeah, that's a good question, Joe. Typically, I think majority of businesses do get funding one way or the other one there, unless we are coming from the Middle East with a shipload of money there. Majority of people who are going to be the people generally we were talking about, when they're thinking of buying businesses, they do try to get a financial structure there which could help them, going, because they don't have all the money to acquire this type of the opportunity they're seeking. So typically what happens is usually, the rule of thumb is, it's a rule of thumb again, it's not exact, for every situation. You should have at least 1/3 of the money of the value of the business, and usually banks call it 2-to-1 ratio, and that's not standard across the board. And then it has to have certain other dynamics, qualifications on the business, and business should be making certain amount of cash flow, which should be service the debt the bank gave you. And other things the bank look at is one, when they gave the money, the value of the business to somebody buying, and they also send their appraisers, because bankers are primarily more asset-based lenders as opposed to cash flow lenders, although they do like to see the cash flow. So they also like to see how much is the value of the assets of the business somebody buying. So hypothetically, let's say you bought something for $300,000 and you have $100,000 and you go to bank for $200,000. They want to make sure that $200,000 is covered by the hard assets, so that the machinery, and it depends upon the structure of the deal, the hard assets, or the soft assets like accounts receivable should be more than sufficient to cover the $300,000. So typically they will ask for appraisal from the banks or financing of those. Having said that, if there's a challenge, what happens is, there's always some solution in many cases. The solution is then owners knows, the people who are selling the business, that it's not a typical business that could be easily funded by the bank. So what they do, we use the industry term is called vendor take back. What essentially it is, it's owner of the business gives you a mortgage just like a bank. So let's say the same example continue with the $300,000 company. So you had the 100,000. Bank, after doing all the due diligence, they said that they will be only able to give you 100,000. So the owner will give you $100,000. In many cases, that $100,000 go back behind the bank for their security purposes. So that's how each situation is unique, but in a nutshell, that's how typically things work out.
So have you ever seen cases where people need money, but they don't necessarily go to a bank? I guess you've kind of alluded to that already, but would they go to, say, private lenders or partners or something like that?
Yeah. You know what? It's the term we use is a creative finance in that time there, right? The necessity is the mother of invention. And if somebody truly like a business and they don't have money, and there could be different structured, if the owner like the person, and owner could say, okay, I'll sell you 50% of business now, you work with me, and then with the option to acquire the remaining 50% as things progress, as you generate the cash flow. That could be one situation. The other could be, if somebody liked the business but he could not come up with the money from his own sources, he will try to bring in a partner. Could be a silent partner, could be active partner, try to close the deal. Usually that's more applicable to the smaller businesses, but if the business is a larger business and the party buying is a very proven party there, who have a track record of success, in those scenarios, the financial guys, we alluded earlier, the financial buyers, they sometimes not buy the company outright 100%. They will buy, back somebody else, and they will put 60%, 70%, 80% of capital, and somebody else come up with a smaller portion of the equity, but have an operations background and let them lead with the to the all the operations and all that, and they usually provide the capital, provide the senior management and strategic advisory, as well as financial backup and industry connections there. So that's how they try to bridge the gaps there.
So we've talked a lot about what the buyer would do. If you're somebody who's selling your company and it's your company, what would you have? What would you say to keep in mind? So
let me understand the question. We covered the buyer side there, and we want to go on to the seller side now.
That's right.
Yeah. So seller, I think the analogy I want to use is, if I'm selling my house, if I want to get the best price for my house, I make sure I cut my lawn, I make sure I have all the cosmetics and repairs done beforehand, so that it appeals to the buyer. And the analogy is typical applies to business as well. It may not be all cosmetics. Also, even though the cosmetic will be still essential, if you walk into a business, make sure it looks neat and tidy and organized. That shows the character of the ownership, the management. But it goes a little deeper than that. Selling a business is, very, I will say, intensive exercise where the buyer, bases a lot of their decision based on the financial information and other, specific due diligence information provided by the ownership. So as much as the physical appearance is required, the seller also need to have proper financial and accounting records, and the due diligence list, which is typically required by the buyers. For example, from the due diligence list, the typical things are, okay, if I'm buying a company, let's say it's doing $10 million of sales, the typical question is, how is the $10 million of sale made of? Is it only two clients, one large client making 70% of the total sales, or there are smaller, majority of clients have no client is more than 5 or 10% of the business, because that dictates a lot in terms of pricing of business. If I have only three clients make 80% of my sales or 90% of my sales, the buyer is a little bit afraid that what happens if I lose one client or two clients. So basically, I lost 50% of my business. Versus if the sales are split, no client is more than 10% of the business. So the owners typically try to diversify their client base. We cover the financial side now. We cover the on the sales side there too. There in terms of how they are splitting their sales. Other issue comes in is how is the company structured? Is in many cases for smaller companies less than $2 million, $3 million in sales, most of the information pertaining to the business intelligence is stored in the owner's mind. Decisions are made on ad hoc basis. There are no policies, procedures, and the systems in place. So typically, if owner leaves, the business walks away with him, because he was the business and he's the everything. He was a supercomputer. So for the seller to get best value for his money, ideally, if he could put a proper management structure in place, put all the procedures and manuals in place, so that the business should be operating on its own, at its own level. People should not be lost if something happens. It's just like when pilot is in the air, he have all kind of manuals to address all kind of issues, and even the pilot change, they know exactly where the manual is and all that. And same thing probably applies in the business side there. So for the sellers, they once they know they're going to be retiring in next 1 to 2 years, they should start getting things in order. And another key question is, which we usually we don't claim ourselves tax experts, but it's a tax issue. The government allows Canadian controlled small corporations there certain tax capital gains exemptions there. So let's say hypothetically, you have a company, Joe, and which done reasonably well, and you have a substantial capital gains, and government allows you, to have this certain amount of capital gains taken from the business tax-free. So if in next 2 years, you're going to be, I think the threshold is you have to own that shares of the company 2 years to get that exemption. Those owners who thinking of, selling in next 2 to 3 years, what the term is called a state freeze, they basically, freeze the state and then give the shares further to the other family members, so that, if the valuation is higher, and each member could get, their maximum exemption under the capital gains there. So that is sometimes, game changer for how much money you take home after the sale there. So that's more on the tax side there. Other one is sometimes the key dependency on the one supplier or employee. So those kind of things there, you think of, when you're thinking selling, think of all those legitimate questions that could come from a legitimate buyer to, give a fair value for the business, and try to address them in advance there. So that's probably, I will say for now on the seller side there.
So does it get into like operation details as well? Like, let's say a business was selling a service and they had certain type of customers and they knew who the owner was because he was always the same owner. And then if you were to sell to another owner, would there be a risk the customer would leave just because it's a different person?
You know what? Again, that's a very good question, and that's a typical fear of the buyer. They're, buying a new company. It is a legitimate fear, but the owner understand it, and this is where you need the professionals to get involved there to help you to structure the deal. So the way typically deal is structured, we usually the deal is negotiated as such that the owner stays behind. We call it a transition period there. It could be 6 months, it could be 2 years, depends upon the each opportunity. And then the owners slowly introduce the new buyers, and assure the customers, it's the same company and same people. The only thing changing is he has need to retire, but he's there to help them, and he's going to be, there for some times until they are up and running. So basically, we call smooth transitioning there. And you know what? If we have seen sometimes people lose customer, but since the new buyer who have spent all this money, they're equally keen to serve those clients. They do usually everything to maintain the confidence, maintain the the trust the buyers have in that company there to deliver things as promised and service them well there.
Yeah, I guess that can be the opposite. When a new buyer comes, they might actually do a better job because they really want the business to succeed.
That is correct, and that's why they have they are already learning the business and trying to get involved in it. B, they still have the luxury of having the original owners alongside there, and doing the warm introductions and all that there, and supporting them for the needs of a typical client there. What are their typical needs and how to typically manage those accounts there.
So, from what you've seen, what are the usual reasons why people sell? I would think retirement is one of the reasons.
You know what? There are different reasons. Like, for example, everybody's scenario changes. Like in the job market, it's not as bad as in North America as it used to be. People have long, stable jobs. They are now there. I don't know, I haven't read the latest, but they change 4, 5, 6 times through their career, the jobs. But selling the business, it could be family situation. It could be there are different triggers there. It could be health. It could be the pressure in the industry there. Sometimes it's a matured industry. You are just fighting alone, and if you let somebody else acquire and merge in a bigger company, then it's more viable than individually if there's no growth coming in the industry. And of course, the retirement was the most genuine reason to sell a business. And sometimes people sell businesses. They want even. General assumption is that you sell the business when you're close to 65 and take the retirement. I have seen people, who started a business early. They've done well. They want to lock in their profits and enjoy the life a little bit, and then come back again in the market there with a new idea and different idea there, because running a business as much as it's very rewarding, it's a very demanding too there. So sometimes people get burned out there, and they just want have some fresh air. So there are myriad of different reasons there why people will sell.
So, related to that question's this one: if you have you ever noticed people start a company with the idea to sell at the beginning of their business?
You know what? The consulting community always preach that, but I think most of the people, when they're starting the business, all the energies are, how could I be successful? And it's, again, as I said, it's very demanding, especially if you're starting a new business. That's why people buy the existing business there, because there is some platform, there's already some cash flow coming in. So most of people, unless people are coming from the professional side, most of people entering into the business side they are more, we could use the term, they are more into mechanic type of mindset. They knew some sort of process or technology or something, and they start with that, and they are more providing that service as opposed to the business structure or business model there, as the financial people understand the model. So, I will say good majority of them don't, but, there are people already, definitely, but slight percentage, they right from the get-go, they come up with a good structure so that they understand their role in the business is, their primary role is to service the customers, and then, of course, create a value in the business at a later, as they progress, so that at a later stage when they decide to sell this, so that they could get maximum value for, from their efforts into the business and their investment in the business.
Okay, I'm going to ask one more question before the break. We're almost halfway in. Have you noticed, or I'm kind of speculating on this, but I'll ask it anyway, if there's an industry that's going through a lot of change, is there a corresponding a lot more businesses being bought and sold in that industry versus one that's pretty stable, and because it's stable, the businesses seem to continue on as they were? Is there any kind of pattern like that you've noticed?
So let me understand the question. I think your question was, let's say, assuming there are two different industries. One is a stable, where it's not too many businesses change hands, versus there's other one where more businesses changes hands there, right?
That's right.
Okay. You know what? If you look at, in the broader terms, in a broader perspective, in the retail side, many more businesses get sold more frequently. People start new things, doesn't work for them, try to sell it, or if it's doing good, then, trying to move on to something else. And into the, the manufacturing side there, the life cycle of the business is longer with the one ownership there. But even then, within the, manufacturing sector or within any industry sector, the matured industries usually get consolidated, and because there's not much new growth coming, not new buyers entering into the market, there's the same pie, everybody's fighting for the same pie. So what happens is that those industries get consolidated, and finally those businesses get, in the hands of few large, big companies, but those other businesses which are evolving industries, for example, let's say now the alternative energies, there are different companies at different stages. So it's a lot more, market is growing as the businesses are growing. So there are more transactions will be happening on, which is a later stage of the growth to maturity level, not at a decline, but a later stage of growth to a maturity cycle of the growth. So like if we divide it into startup, growth, mature, and declining. So I will say later stage of growth and maturity, so the beginning of maturity. That's where most of the transition happen there.
Okay, we're going to pause for a few minutes, and we'll be back and continue the conversation.
Thank you.
back on the Cube Talk Show. We're talking to Harjinder Kang about private businesses, buying and selling private businesses. And Harjinder, how are you?
Yes, Joe.
So we were covering financing. We were covering how the process goes for a buyer and a seller, and the different things that come up. I'll start with this question now. If you're involved in buying or selling, how is the company valued? How would you know how much it's worth?
Yeah, usually, like the appraiser says, is generally willing buyer and willing seller to decide the price for the business. But having said that, there's some fair business valuation models there, and typically more in the established businesses, we use the term called EBITDA, which is term we use it to normalize the cash flow of the business there, and it's multiple of that as that kind of guiding point for the valuation of a business there. So having said that, it's not carved in the stone that for each business it should be same in the same industry, because there are other factors. For example, the valuation of business is decided the cash flow of the business, how reliable is the cash flow, and what is the trend of the cash flow. And again, we already covered, is the cash flow coming from few small, larger, I will say only few number of clients, or it's nicely spread. And the other one is, other part, due diligence questions there, is a business properly organized with all the, policies, procedures, manuals in place, and proper management layout. And other thing is it's a growth industry, or a matured industry, or a declining industry. Other thing is, having those things covered, what is the true asset base of the business? If I'm buying a business, as we mentioned earlier, there's some businesses are very capital intensive there. For example, utilities, infrastructure projects, they are more capital intensive, so is the manufacturing. But there are businesses where there's not much on the the machinery. It's more on the goodwill side there. For example, if I have some unique product and market needs it a lot, and I might have only 2 machines to make it, and the machine value may not be a lot, but it will be the demand of the product there which will decide the valuation. So truly answering that question, each situation is going to be different, but there are certain rule of thumbs there. Average manufacturing, if we're talking about $3 to $10 million businesses, depending upon all these factors, the range is anywhere from 3.5, 4, actually usually let's say 4 to 6 or 7 times of the EBITDA. So EBITDA is earning before income taxes and amortization, depreciation and amortization. So this will give you the true cash flow of the business, because whatever the business generated before the income taxes plus the whatever is in the depreciation. So it gives the true cash flow of the business, how much is it generating to service the debt and all that. So that's usually the the key model used. But again, there are different people use different models there. Discounted cash flow is another one there. The same one for people use for the analyst use for the public companies. Those could be also applied to the valuation of the businesses of private companies too there.
So that leads to this next question. If the cash flow, well, I assume if a business has been running for a while, they'll always have some cash flow. Is there a scenario where there isn't? Say, well, a new company wouldn't, but say it's a new line of business that's relatively new, or they've they've been running for a while, but lately they haven't made any money. Is that something that I assume that would change all the calculations?
Yes, you know what? That depends upon the type of again industry. Like if you are into a development phase, and and you are selling the company at a development stage before it materialize the success. Sometimes even you're not making money and you still command a high multiples, and that we see in the internet software companies provide, or even in the drug provide, they're getting approval from the FDA in drug case. But I think the business we're talking in general on the conventional businesses here, you know what, if you're not making money, you don't command much pricing there, because you are in the industry, you are in the business for a number of years. So it's not you are in the development stage. It is about the business. It's about something about the business which is not attracting client, which is, or is mismanaged, or the industry is not supportive of the opportunity you have. So in those situations, sometimes you don't command. For example, we had a situation, we just spoke this week with somebody, and based on his income basis, he was not generating cash flow, so it doesn't command much pricing. But based on the assets of his business, which was based on the peak time when the things were good, he bought a lot of machinery. He's better off auctioning the machinery than selling as a going concern, because the going concern he's not generating cash, and for the buyer, unless somebody is from that industry, he just happen to like that industry. But as an investor, you're buying a business to have a certain cash flow that, to support your dream of owning a business, dream of having a certain lifestyle there. So in that situation, answering your question, it was better off selling the assets as opposed to, enterprise there.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. Is there a case where you wouldn't run the business, you'd sell it to take it apart and sell the asset? So I guess you've just answered that.
Yeah, that is a more applicable situation, which is a business which is more a capital asset intensive, and those are unique situations. But generally, most of businesses, if they close down, go to auctions, it's like basically getting 20 cents for a dollar type of thing there in those situations. So you ideally better off having a good running business. Try to do best to make it efficient, profitable. If you really want to have a nice check at the end of the day to upon selling your business.
Okay, that's good. So in general, if you're doing any buying or selling of companies, who would you need to help you out? What sort of professionals?
Yeah, that's you know what. This is where I think, as we in our earlier questions we mentioned there, it makes a lot of difference if you get people involved, people who understand the dynamics and the process of buying and selling of businesses, and who've been into this industry. And typically, you need, of course, a corporate lawyer. You need a good accountant. And you need depends upon the type of business and size of the business, either a business broker or an investment banker there to help you out with, it depends upon which side of the transaction. If you're a buyer, help you match, hopefully, a business with your background and with your profile and with your capital base. And if you're a seller, somebody who tried to, help you organize the things beforehand and add value to secure maximum money for your business, A, by presenting it right, and B, by attracting the right buyer for your business there. Because that makes a huge difference. For the right person, it have more value, and for the wrong person, it may not have the same valuation, because that business was not right for them and it's not appealing to them, so they won't be paying you more money. So that makes a huge difference even though sometimes people say, "Why? Oh, I could sell my business my own," and we have seen many cases. Uh, you know, they never extract the full value of their business, and they basically their job come from running the business to selling the business, and their attention and their focus change to something else, and their business starts suffering. And if they don't sell the business in due course, they matter of fact end up reducing the value of their business, trying to take things in their own hands.
Yeah, so timing is very important when doing all of this, isn't it?
Yeah, I missed that. Joe, go again.
The timing's very important when you're doing this.
Yes, you know what? That's another good question. A lot of time, especially for last 2 years, I've seen a lot of people now trying to sell their business when things are not working, and they think that when things are not working, let's sell the business. And usually, if it's not working for you, who was the original owner, what are the chances the person who's going to be starting new in your industry or going to be new buyer, it's going to work for them that well. So ideally, we try to convey this message when going is good, that is the time to sell. But having said that, for everybody, there's a different decision factors there that come into play. And so anybody could be selling at any stage, but ideally to get the value when the going is good, that's kind of a time to think of selling. Just like this is in the sports, usually the best smart players, they leave the game when they are at the top of their career there.
Yeah, that's right. I've heard that.
Yeah.
And when they stay too long, it gets really, really ugly for them. But so have you ever had a case where a business was sold and then they had to repurchase it because it floundered, or maybe they changed their mind and said we really shouldn't have sold it?
We hope it doesn't happen in more often. It doesn't happen very often, but having said that, I wouldn't say it never happens. And it happens in a situation it becomes important for the in two times the original seller get involved in buying back that business. One situation is when, as we talked earlier, if owner have given some financing to the new buyer, and if the buyer was unable to successfully operate the business, and they flanked and they didn't do well in the business, and they were not able to make payments on the as promised to the seller of the business or the bank. So usually then the original owner comes back because to recover his money there. And that's one situation. And the other situation is, because this was, to the trust of the owners to come back and recover his money. And the other situation is, which did happen occasionally, but not very often, and don't wish it should happen very often. Again, the new buyer, it was the wrong business for them. They failed in it. And although they had paid all the money to the seller, and now this company is to the buyer worth nothing because he could not make a go out of it. So sometimes it's opportunistic buy for the previous owner because they know the industry and all that. This is okay, we'll buy it from you there. Maybe again something they sold for $1, they probably buy it back for 50 cents, something like that. And again, it's going to be different, but these are two scenarios usually I can think of right now.
Yeah, I had this situation in mind where a seller sells to a buyer. The buyer doesn't do a good job running the company, so the seller comes back in as a consultant and maybe runs the business for 5 more years or something like that.
You know what, the typical answer to that one was, if seller want to just run the business for 5 years, they rather make all the money to themselves, just as opposed to earning the consulting fees there. But usually owners can provide the consult. They do sometimes happily, but they don't want to be involved for that long, for 5 years. Even sometimes we have a hard time convincing them to stay there 2 to 3 years. The only time they stay behind 2 to 3 years when they still have some ownership stake in the business there.
Yeah, that makes sense. So back to the prior answer about who do you need. You mentioned a lawyer and a good accountant and a business broker / investment banker. Where would somebody find? I mean, I guess you could look in the yellow pages for these people, but where would you find somebody who you'd want to
You know
work
what?
with?
Unfortunately, in Canada, business brokerage or investment banking for more established companies, they understand it very well and they know who to go to. And the businesses which are less than, let's say threshold of $25 million, where the Bay Street, banks and the Bay Street companies jump in, they sometimes, they have to really search through, because it's not a very organized sector in Canada. U.S. is a much bigger market, and there's more recognized, brokerage houses, which is almost of national chains. But there are some chains coming in Canada as a purely business brokerage. Right now, this by virtue of your real estate license, you could be a business broker there, for smaller opportunities. But having said that, having a real estate license doesn't necessarily mean you understand the business aspects of, valuation and the dynamics and all that. So it is evolving industry right now in that stage, there, infancy stage, to going to the, little bit maturity. But people typically, yes, they can look into yellow pages. They can talk to their accountant to find them in a good brokerage or good investment banking house. For example, there is a boutique outfits like ourselves there. Our typical focus is businesses, less than 25 million, and that's our target. But having said that, doesn't mean we don't do any transaction over 25 million. But we didn't want to compete with the banks there, so people try to find us out from the internet, through the friends, those kind of sources there.
So have you, I think I know the answer to this question, but just to explore it some more, have you had people come to you that say, I want to sell a company, but I want to make it public? Or
you know what? That is more financial. People make companies public many times more in the growth stage, unless it's a private equity fund. When they go public, they're trying to cash in their equity. When a family or individual goes to public markets, they usually go to the public markets to acquire more capital for the business. So, taking a route to go to public market to sell is more used by the private equity funds as opposed to the individuals or families. Their families goes to the public market more for growth. But having said that, they could also be sometimes locking in some of the profits they have in the equity they have created in the business too there. But it's not very commonly used.
Okay. So you mentioned boutiques. So a boutique is somebody who would do all of this for you in terms of finding the people you need, giving you the advice, coordinating the buy and sell. Is that right?
Basically, if you really go back, set back, and we've gone through the myriad of questions, and that will be the party who walk you through all those different questions and all those different issues there, whether it's coming from expected from your buyer or seller. Because they've been through this process. This is their primary business. They understand, how to create, demand for your business, or how to structure your business for the maximum benefit of the owners, or if you're a buyer, how to have an opportunity which is fully spelled out, fully analyzed, and hopefully match with your profile and your financial abilities there.
Okay, that makes sense. We have about 5 minutes or so left. If you'd like to give out a website, contact information, if somebody would like to contact you.
Certainly. Thank you very much, Joe, for first inviting me, and I will be glad if anybody want to have a questions, whether pertaining to buying business or investing in a business or maybe selling their company. And our company is called Ojala Financial Corp. And our website is www.ojalabankers, O J like John, A like Apple, L like Line, A like Apple again, Bankers, BANKERS with the plural, ojalabankers.com. And our telephone number is 905 450 6699. Again, 905 450 6699. We are based in Brampton, but having said that, we are serving all Ontario. We have, sold businesses around Windsor and east and, north towards even Gravenhurst area there. So that doesn't limit us, because if our number is in Brampton, that we don't serve the other areas. So we do cover a lot of areas there.
And you cover you cover most types of companies. Is that?
You know what? Our focus been mostly established conventional businesses, and having said that, we are also go into other areas for evolving areas as well, but predominantly more established conventional manufacturing and distribution businesses there. And also, in addition to merger and acquisition and business brokerage, business sales, we also provide corporate finances services and business advisory services there to help the companies turn around, make them more valuable as well there. And in our team there, we are people who are very experienced, who have managed the companies, operated the companies, who've been acted as a consultant to the companies for a number of years there.
Okay, that sounds good. Actually, is there an email you'd want to give out as well?
Yes, the email will be, to keep it simple, is info at Ojala Bankers, again, OJALA Bankers, BANKERS.com. And once again, my telephone number will be 905-450-6699, and my name is Harjinder Kang.
Okay, thanks very much for that. Thanks for coming on, and we'll be posting the show on my website as well. It's www.joetheinvestor.ca, and you can also find this show on thatchannel.com in the podcast archives, and it's under the Cube Talk Show banner. And I can also be contacted at joetheinvestor.today@gmail.com, and I'm also on Twitter at joetheinvestor. And that's our show for today. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Desiring without patience. Bye.